Hi, Jane. It's good to
Hi,
be here.
it's great to see you.
Yeah. So I'm here with Jane Unchained from UnchainedTV.
UnchainedTV, baby.
Yeah. This is your independent media platform, which is plant-based animal rights news.
We have a plant-based animal rights sustainability network, the world's first and pretty much only. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. So we're not out to make a profit. We're out to change hearts and minds, particularly around the issue of food. And basically, our fundamental mission is stop eating animals. It's not a sacrifice. It's a joyous adventure. And we do everything we can in our power with right now approximately 2,000 videos and counting to convince people.
Amazing, 2,000 videos. How long has it been up for?
Oh, it's a project that was sort of in beta testing maybe 3 years ago, and we started really in earnest about 2 years ago. And it's been a steep learning curve. I've done a lot of difficult things in my life. I was a news reporter on television for 30 years. I've written 4 books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers. I can tell you this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I am literally running a network. And we have a post office box that's connected to a building, and people think that's our building. So that's good. Fake it till you make it, right? No, we have no building. We have very little overhead, but there are costs involved, obviously. But think about networks, other networks who have created streaming networks, spending billions of dollars. And we've done it in such a tiny fraction of that. That's something I'm proud of, but it's still a challenge. I've learned about contracts. I've learned about the technology that's changing all the time. But our fundamental premise is we want to break through the vegan echo chamber. I don't know about you, but I've been to one too many documentary screenings where everybody in the room's already vegan, and we have to sit there and watch horrible footage of animals being tortured. And it's like, I don't need to see that over and over again. I'm vegan. My dogs are vegan. I want people who aren't vegan to see that and to wake up. And so I think it's really important that we burst out of the vegan echo chamber and reach. There's 8.2 billion people on this planet. We've got to start reaching more of them, and that's our mission.
Amazing, incredible. It's so incredibly inspiring to see you build this whole new network. I think there's so much opportunity for change because we have the tools and the technology now that it wasn't available 20 years ago. Now you can create your own independent media network to share positive news, to share change, to share transformation.
Yes.
So it's incredible.
And I think people are hungry for it. I was in the mainstream media, and I hate to say it, those old cliches, if it bleeds, it leads, very true. So when you talk about climate change, I call it climate pornography. All they show on the mainstream media is, the tragedy, the people, they've lost their house to fires, to floods, people crying, people on their knees, what happened to my house, and oh my gosh, I've got to leave. Solutions? They don't want to talk about it. We'll be right back. In fact,
they're using it as a bioweapon.
Well, they're using it for ratings.
Yeah.
They're using it for ratings. But
they're not showing the truth.
I was in that genre. I'm not proud to say that I was a crime reporter for 30 years. I covered some of the biggest criminal trials. I covered the Michael Jackson trial. I covered, the OJ trial, the Robert Blake trial. The list goes on and on. Anna Nicole Smith case and all of those cases, the Menendez brothers. I did that. I do feel that as I went vegan during the course of my career, thanks to Howard Lyman, I was raised kind of pescatarian, but when I ran into Howard Lyman, the mad cowboy, and I interviewed him after he had been on Oprah and revealed the horrors of the meat and dairy industry, this is decades ago, and he wrote a book called Mad Cowboy, and afterwards he came over to my cubicle. I was working at Paramount Studios at a local TV station, LA. I was an LA anchor. And he said, "We hear you're a vegetarian." I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, do you eat dairy?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Liquid meat," like that, right at my nose. And I went vegan at that moment. That was 29 years ago. So when people say don't confront people, if he hadn't confronted me, I might not have gone vegan. Went right to liquid meat. And so that doesn't mean I should walk around town and just liquid meat. But thank God for him. I never touched dairy intentionally ever again. And about a month or two later, I was having a salad, and I guess the waiter had put Parmesan cheese, and I used to love Parmesan cheese, and I took a taste and went, because my taste buds had returned to their factory settings. So what I tell people is, give it, 30 days to adjust. And you will realize that this is the most fun lifestyle. That's what we really try to convey on Unchained TV, is that, yes, we have very serious documentaries. You can watch Earthlings, you can watch Dominion, you can watch a lot of, if you want, graphic footage, but we also have tons of super fun cooking shows. We have a series called New Day, New Chef, which has won Taste Awards, which is packed with celebrities, cooking fabulous dishes. In fact, we're about to shoot our next season, New Day, New Chef, Lunch Edition, in about 3 days. And so we make it super fun. We have a great show series that was nominated for Taste Awards called Kale Crew, which is based out of Chicago. You know how many vegan restaurants there are in Chicago? I had no clue. And it's a hit. And this guy, Nemanja Golubovic, who owns Kale My Name restaurant, who is just super charismatic. I was at a party at PETA headquarters, or PETA Empathy Center, and I was sitting next to him, and he's talking, and I go, you have an incredible personality. You need your own show. Well, I say that every so often to people who are really charismatic. But this guy went back to Chicago, and the next thing you know, he's like, here's episode 1. Episode 2 is scheduled for next week. I was like, oh my gosh. So now we had a premiere party in LA, we had a premiere party in Chicago, we had a premiere party in New York. Now he's on season 2. We've already done Spicy Moon in the Bowery. He just finished wrapping in Miami. We're showing that veganism is not just, Brooklyn and Venice, California, because that's the sort of stereotype, like the uber hip, sort of too hip, too cool for school person with, whatever. There's a stereotype. And what we're trying to show is, no, this is happening all over America. It's happening in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's happening in Austin, Texas. It's happening here, there, and everywhere. We also want to go global. And that's why we've branched out into FAST channels, which is free ad-supported television. These are popping up all over the world. They're being watched globally because the number one search term of people watching television is free. So we want to give everything away for free. Our streaming network is 100% free. I don't take a salary. We have mostly volunteers. We have to pay a few key people things because they're technical type people, but generally it's a volunteer run thing. And if you want to get involved, reach out to Unchained TV, DM us on Instagram. We will put you to work immediately. And that applies to you too. So free ad-supported television does have ads contained in it. We had to get a lot of our content creators to sign new contracts explaining to them, no, we're not doing this to make money, but we are not going to just not get on platforms because there's ads. That's where the eyeballs are. We want to also show those people the vegan lifestyle. Any income that is left over after expenses will go into a pool to fund new vegan content. And feel free to submit an idea. So we're really trying to hit. We feel we have the obligation to take advantage of every single technology that exists to spread the vegan message. Why should only meat industry products be on these channels? We're also on PBS stations around the country, New Day, New Chef, and we're also on Gusto TV now, which is, quote unquote, the world's best food network. So we're bringing veganism to Gusto TV.
Amazing. It's so inspiring. Can you share a little bit about your journey with building an animal rights series while you're working with mainstream news?
Well, so I worked in, oh my gosh, I graduated from NYU. I worked in Fort Myers, Florida, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, my hometown of New York, where I was an anchor and reporter for 12 years. Then I came out here to KCAL, and that ran about 12 years, anchor reporter. And then I went to a show called Celebrity Justice, which is a tabloid show, was the precursor to TMZ. So I've chased my share fare of celebrities down the block. But we would have a morning meeting it was Harvey Levin, right? And I had to be there all the way in Glendale by like 7 a.m. fully dressed. If you showed up with wet hair, there was hell to pay. And where's the celebrity? Where's the justice? Now, they hated us. We were a tabloid show. The publicist, so I started thinking, where's the celebrity? Where's the justice? PETA. So I started working with PETA to get celebrities who cared about their issues so much that they would be willing to even be on a tabloid show to get their point across about an issue. It wasn't just PETA, but it was very helpful because they have a lot of celebrities, and I work with them. I work with various groups. I even got to interview Robert Redford. And he had to literally push his publicist aside to talk to me. He had gotten very involved in saving the whales from the military sonar. The military sonar drives them crazy. And he had sent a mass email out that I was on a list or something, and we're concerned. So I went to an event that he was at, and I literally jumped out from behind a dumpster and I said, Mr. Redford, I got your letter about the whales. So he was such a nice guy. He goes, I'll talk to you later. He came up later. I was sort of circling around, trying not to get thrown out. And he was doing interviews with all these big networks, and he came out to go to the men's room, and I jumped. I said, Mr. Redford, he was such a nice person. He stopped and did a one-on-one interview with me about the military sonar, and it was just great. It was one of the highlights of my career. And then I was a little overexcited at that point. He said, what about you? What do you think of the whales? And at that point I said, I'm devastated. I think about them all the time. And at that point he starts backing off like, okay, this lady's kooky. Let me get away. But the honest truth is that it was a very fun interview and exclusive. And I've interviewed a lot of celebrities. I interviewed Paul McCartney. I've interviewed quite a few people. But I always find the A-listers are charming. It's the D-listers you have to worry about. But yeah, I lost track of what your question was just in my anecdotes.
Well, I asked about your animal rights series on mainstream television, but I'm curious to know, where were these whales? Where was this happening? It's
happening everywhere. The military sonar just it's excruciating because it travels underwater and then it hits them and it disorients them. And it's military sonar. And, there's so many issues like that. We are torturing wildlife. We're torturing animals across the board. And I can't enjoy myself knowing, I can't wake up and say, in a perfect world, I'd be on the beach reading a trashy novel, playing tennis, who knows what, right? But I can't. There's too much suffering going on with these animals, and they can't speak for themselves. So we've got to do it, and we've got to rise up. That's why I love the name Animal Rising. I've interviewed them. We also give channels to all the different animal rights organizations. So PETA has a channel, Mercy for Animals has a channel, Animal Outlook has a channel, In Defense of Animals, Animal Rising, and some of the sanctuaries like Farm Sanctuary, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So we try to take all those organizations. As somebody said, they pointed out to me, you're a living record of our movement. And I hadn't even thought about it till he said that. And I was like, you're right. We're a living record of this movement in real time. We cover the trials that Direct Action Everywhere experiences, people who try to tell authorities the anti-cruelty laws here in California are being broken, for example. The prosecutors don't act. So they go in large numbers, singing songs with roses, and they go into these factory farms and they rescue some abused animals. And instead of the police saying thank you for pointing out violation of animal cruelty laws, they get arrested and put on trial and prosecuted. So we've covered those live because I also did a stint at Court TV. I used to fill in at Court TV. And as I said, I covered trials. So what we're doing is using those mainstream media formats, but covering the animal rights trials. Recently, we were the live pool camera inside a trial, a hearing in Wisconsin about a beagle breeding facility that is the subject of a lot of controversy for the horrific things that are happening inside that facility. We were the pool camera. that was a huge moment for Unchained TV.
Is it hard to get inside?
Very hard, very hard. And so, we're independent media, but it does give us a little credentials. It gives us credibility when we're able to go into a hearing and be the pool camera. But anyway, to answer your question, after the show ended, Celebrity Justice, I started filling in for Nancy Grace on CNN Headline News. And then one day, the guy who had the show before her apparently just walked off in a huff, and they wanted to replace him very quickly. So they called me up and they said, "Would you like a show?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Okay, we're going to call it Issues with Jane Velez-Mitchell." I said, "Great, because I've got a lot of issues." And then I said, "Would you mind if I did a little animal segment once a week?" And they said, "No, I don't. They probably thought I was going to do pet adoptions or something. Well, as soon as I got in there, I started doing hardcore animal rights every Friday for 3 or 4 minutes. And we were, for 6 years, and that's on in 39 countries, showing pig gestation crates, tail docking, all the abuses in factory farming, in laboratory experimentation, etc. So that was very, that was very exciting. And then when the show ended, I actually went up to one of the executives at CNN and I said, "What do you think I should do?" Because at that point, let's face it, I was a little long in the tooth. I didn't think I was going to get another. I thought that's pretty much the end of the road. And she said, "Obviously you care a lot about animals. You should do that full time." So that's when I started going out with a GoPro camera and just recording protests. And the first protest I covered was outside the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. It was 9 degrees and they were protesting against the circus. Everybody was shaking. And I thought, my hand was shaking. I said, "Is this really worth?" I said, "Yes. If these people can come out and stand here in 9-degree weather, it's worth it for me to record." Because that was really before social media really exploded. This was late 2014, 2015. And that's it. Then I started going live on Facebook and then started the streaming network.
So you built your following from because you were going live with the news channel online, or was it?
No, well, when I left CNN, they gave me all my social media, and at that time it was Facebook. It wasn't really.
You were going. Yeah. Were you doing the news from your social media?
No, but they just build up. It builds up. If you're on a it builds up pretty fast.
Because you're millions of people.
So I just took that and I just used that. At first, we were just a Facebook network. At one point, we had 17 million views one year doing something called Lunch Break Live. What happened was, do you want to wait for that to go away, or
I think it's okay with the mics. It should be fine,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
okay. So first I started with a GoPro, and then when Facebook Live came along, it was funny. I was having a vegan cookout, and I happen to have some glamorous people here, models, and they were whatever. And I just said, I wonder if my Wi-Fi works out on the deck. And I went live and I started seeing all these comments. What are they eating? Who's that? And we were making Beyond Meat burgers and veggie burgers and obviously a nice vegan. So I was like, wow, this is really getting response. We have to eat lunch every day. Let's do Lunch Break Live. So for several years, we went live every single day. 4th of July, Christmas Eve, New Year's, it didn't matter what. We went live at lunchtime, 12:30, every single day. And one year we got 17 million views, and it was super fun. And then people would go live. We'd go to people's houses. People would come here. And every so often, somebody would cancel at the last second, and I would have to cook. And one time, I set my cutting board on fire behind me, and I was live, and the flames are going there. Everybody's I'm looking at the comments, look behind you, look behind you, look behind you. And then I look behind me, and the whole place was in flames. So we try to get actual chefs, but so many great recipes.
That's so cool. So that's so interesting that you took that, that viewership from
Yeah.
coming from the mainstream media
Yeah.
into, you know, doing things that matter for yourself and for the community, for the planet.
Yeah.
How did you get into just reporting in general? Like, how did you like enter that world? Is that what you studied?
Well, when I was in high school, I was that kid leafleting outside the school. And I was always an issues-oriented person. And I had tables. We used to set up tables and I like to argue with people. I think that was pretty much the underlying motivation.
When's your birthday?
That I, what?
When's your birthday?
September 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, so ever since I was a kid, I was that person. So I actually wanted to be a syndicated columnist, but I was covered on TV several times protesting this, that, and the other when I was in high school. And so I just checked off, when I applied to NYU, I just checked off broadcast journalism, didn't think really much about it. And then I just took off on my journalism career. And always, I mean, it was really a fun ride. I look back and I go, how the hell did I do that? How did I live in Minneapolis for 2 years? When I arrived, it was the most intense culture shock I've ever experienced. And I've traveled around the world. I literally came from Florida. I did not have a coat. I had sandals. And it was 45 degrees below zero with the wind chill when I arrived. I didn't even know anything called a defroster existed. So I barely knew how to drive because I used to hitchhike to work at my previous job every morning.
Really? In Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Because I lived like 4 blocks away, so I'd always catch a ride. I didn't really know how to drive because once you got there, they would take you out. And I experienced like intense culture shock. Like I couldn't start my car. And then people were putting hay under the wheels. And I can't even tell you, but I survived miraculously. And it was fun. It's a beautiful area. I don't want to knock Minneapolis. I just was a city girl who did not have any idea how to function.
I spent 4 years in Thunder Bay, which is right above Duluth. So it's like directly up there on Lake Superior, where I went to school and university in Canada. It was so cold. Like the 45-degree days, my eyes are like peeling, you know, like frozen makeup. Like when I get to work, my face is black because the icicles on my eyelashes are dripping. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really intense.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's cool. So it was kind of in your blood. What were you doing issues about when you were in high school?
Animal rights.
Okay.
My high school yearbook nothing's changed. Honestly, I pretty much look the same.
I was just born in.
And I'm not complimenting myself. I'm saying I look. I'll show you my high school yearbook. It's like animal rights on the page that I had. So yeah, I was just.
So you grew up in New York?
Midtown Manhattan. I grew up right across from Carnegie Hall, 57th and 7th.
So do you think that really influenced your like drive to, because like it was, you know, there's probably lots of new, you know.
Yes.
Like what did you absorb when you were little that were like?
Well, actually what's interesting is Barbara Walters lived in my building growing up. So I would see her occasionally, you know, leave with her kerchief and jump into a limousine and go to do her Today Show. And that really inspired me. And then I also lived a few blocks away from CBS Broadcasting Center. And when I was in college? Yes, when I was in college, a friend of mine and I would walk in with coffee, like we were delivering coffee, and just spend the whole day there. This was before security, but we would just walk up and go, coffee delivery, and we'd walk right through, and I literally would go into studios where they were broadcasting nationally and stand behind the camera and watch. And this one guy, his name was Hughes Rudd, and he was an old, you know, crusty, and during a commercial break, he was like, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm a journalism student. He goes, don't get into this business. I'll never forget that. Yeah, those were the good old days. So I used to go into all sorts of places. You know, that was the old days, though. You wouldn't be able to do that today. There's too much security. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's the exciting, adventurous part, though. When you're young, you're like, you know, you kind of sneak into places to learn about, you know, what's going on. And you know, so that you can get inspired, because that's, I mean, obviously that was your future. So.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up. I mean, how can you complain about growing up across the street from Carnegie Hall, right? And one of the top pianists in the world lived on, like, I think the 3rd floor. and he would practice all day. So when they say, if you want to get to Carnegie Hall, practice, 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 they're not kidding. And nobody ever complained. His name is Emmanuel Axe. He's one of the top pianists. And he would just be playing all day. We were also like blown away at how incredible he was. Nobody complained about the noise. But yes, he would practice for at least 8 hours a day. We heard it.
And so when you were during that whole era of working on mainstream news, when did you decide to like shift? And when did you when was that moment of like, I can't read from the script anymore? Like kind of when you started your series or?
Well, no, when I was at KCAL, and then I have to thank Howard Lyman, because I was just this sort of half-assed vegetarian, didn't really, I always loved animals, but it wasn't focused into anything, and I wasn't a vegan. And when he turned me vegan with that liquid meat comment, very soon I started to get, it's funny how the blinders come off, and when the blinders come off, you can see everything, which you wouldn't be able to see prior. So I'm not proud of the fact that in my journey, I was pretty much a pescatarian household, but then I ate like shellfish, and now I look back and I go, oh, how could I have done that? Because my awareness just wasn't there, and eggs. And then once he turned me vegan with that one comment, and somehow I managed to start, glue traps? I started taking all the glue traps out of the studio. And people were like, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you doing? I said, that these animals are going to be stuck in that glue. What are you? But see, that didn't occur to me till I went vegan. That's why it's so important for people to go vegan. I get that one. Yeah, so then I started seeing the rodeo stories, because a lot of kicker stories involve animal cruelty, zoos, rodeos. And then I was like, no, that's not funny. I'm not reading that. So I became a real pain in the neck.
Because you had to read about things that didn't align with
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of times they're like, stick to the script. I got a few stick to the scripts.
And you're like, no, I can't stick to the script anymore.
Well,
yeah, it's just, when I watched, I don't know if you've seen the documentary, Out of the Shadows.
No, I'd like to see it.
It's more about Hollywood and like the whole timeline of not just Hollywood, but the whole timeline. It shows all the news channels, like how they're all the same and they're lying to you and like telling the same narrative on each channel. And this guy, he's a stunt double in Hollywood, and he goes through, like, he gets really injured. He was like made it to all the big movies, and then he got really injured. And then through that journey, he discovered like the actual truth behind the darkness of Hollywood and the whole programming. But it's a really good way how the timeline shows over time how, all the movies have programmed us. And yeah, it's just a good overall, like, because we know this information from little bits and pieces, but it shows the whole timeline of that. So it's really eye-opening and awakening. And when I even before I watched it, I knew that the mainstream narrative was clouding our perception of everything. It makes us focus on fear and suffering, and it keeps us in that cloudy, dark loop of like being in darkness versus like, imagine if we could, dissolve the old fear-based media and the old news systems. And it is
dissolving. Cable and broadcast are going bye-bye.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the narrative is still like, if there's advertising, it doesn't take a genius. Nobody has to knock on your door and say, don't talk about this. No, I thought somebody was at the door. That's so funny. No, Sunday, nobody's at the door. Mommy just did a knock. But you do the math. So you're not going to attack the prescription drug industry because look at the commercials. It's all like, now what insanity do we live in where all these commercials are saying, ask your doctor about this thing, and then side effects could include so
awful.
I mean, that is so crazy that we're allowing that. It's really turning it's like, go to your drug pusher. Really. I mean, it's insane that, and we've normalized that to the point where people are like, oh yeah, no, you shouldn't go ask your doctor for this pill or that pill. They're supposed to look at you and say, here's your issue, right?
Yeah.
So our medical system is completely screwed up. And you're right, there's a lot of indoctrination. When I watch a show, no matter what kind of show is it could be from the 70s, it could be shot yesterday, it could be on Netflix, it could be, and no offense to any network. This is society. We're not attacking any individual.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
How long before I see animal exploitation? Whether it's a roasted pig or a donkey in a cart, or you wouldn't watch any television if you said, I cannot watch anything with animal exploitation. It's built into every storyline. And a fur coat, you know. That's why we also want to do movies. We have a script.
Nice.
Yes, there's a script we've written. Justina Adorno, who's a well-known actress. She was on Grand Hotel. Jamie Logan, who's a great activist and actress from The Next Girl. And myself, we've written a script. That's all I can say about it now. But we'd like to produce that and have that. Let's create our own non-speciesist movies. Fictional movies.
Yeah, I think there's this whole new open door that people can. I'm excited to see new movies come out because that are not adhering to the old fear-based narrative. But there's the same story, just the drama and and of course we need drama in the movie, but it's you could do it in a way that is inspiring and empowering for the viewer that actually transforms their life versus degrading them.
Yes, yes.
And I'm excited to see this shift into more of the film and the narrative side of things, because I think when I walk into a plane and I see everyone just watching all this garbage, these movies and all this stuff, I'm like, we could have a whole network of just all, I just see this whole wave, and I think there's a lot of shift happening with the writer's strike from a couple of years ago. People thinking out of the box. I don't need to write that script anymore. I don't need to read from that script anymore. And then they actually think with their heart and they actually pursue a different path of what's actually matters to them.
And people are hungry. They're hungry for solutions. And that's what we offer on Unchained TV, solutions. It's a solutionary network. I've been hearing a lot about the 80-20 rule. 20% of inputs create 80% of outcomes. And that to me is animal agriculture. If we look at all the problems our society is experiencing, from world hunger, because we're feeding so much of the food we grow to factory farmed animals, to climate change, completely ignored the animal agriculture role in greenhouse gas emissions. Completely ignored. It's ignored by liberal media, it's ignored by conservative media, it's ignored by the United Nations. It's the missing piece to the climate puzzle. When you talk about America's healthcare crisis with 2/3 of Americans overweight or obese, 43% of Americans obese, that's meat and dairy-laden fast food. All these problems that we are grappling with as a society are being caused by animal agriculture. And who is funding animal agriculture? The U.S. government through the Farm Bill. Right now, we're trying to urge, since there's a move to slash government, cut the Farm Bill. It hasn't been passed yet. There's literally, over the course of 10 years, it's estimated $1.6 trillion in subsidies to animal agriculture. Were it not for government subsidies, animal agriculture would collapse. There's the majority of revenue in the dairy industry comes in some way, shape, or form from the government. So think about the insanity that we're in right now. The government is fueling the climate crisis, the healthcare crisis, the water pollution crisis, the drought crisis. We all know a vegan diet saves 600 gallons of water per person a day. All of these crises are being fueled by the government subsidizing animal agriculture. Meanwhile, they're also spending a whole bunch of money, on these issues, on water pollution, on the blah, blah, blah. So it's insanity. It's insanity. How do we get this message out? And the thing that drives me the craziest is how is it that so many smart people, the best and the brightest, which was a sarcastic title, by the way, which I appreciate, the Rhodes Scholars of the world cannot see this. They can analyze, I don't know what congressional reports and blah, 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 and read all these books and come out. They can't see this 80-20 rule as it applies to animal agriculture. Factory farming is destroying us. As somebody said, we're turning this planet into planet slaughterhouse. And so what can we do? Every day I say, how can I be more effective? How can I reach more people? There's 8.2 billion people. And we have to stop infighting within our movement. We have to stop repeating meat industry talking points. If you don't like veggie burgers, don't eat them, but don't run around saying veggie burgers are processed. That's the meat industry's talking point. They have a war room the size of Fox News where they spew that out. If you keep repeating that, you're basically helping them. Infighting helps the bad guys, and repeating their talking points helps the bad guys. So I say, if you don't like how somebody's doing activism, you do it differently. You don't have to attack them.
Do you know anything about, so when I was in Sacramento a couple years, we protested for the moratorium on all factory farms, which is great that it got passed. Is it still in a moratorium? Do you know?
Well, you're talking about like a small county.
Okay, it was just a county. It wasn't. California
I don't want to speak on that because I wouldn't want to say anything wrong. I do know that, that could have just been even the town of Berkeley.
Okay.
Which this is a direct action everywhere initiative. I would check with them. I just don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do great initiatives. They try to. I think it's just Berkeley, but I'm not sure.
I didn't know if it was
extremely local.
I thought it was California.
No,
I think we were protesting.
We have so many
California.
factory farms and
people to put a moratorium on new ones. So new ones.
Yeah, but no, that's not. That has not passed in California. I wish.
Yeah, because that would be great to at least stop the faucet.
Yeah, no, it's. People don't realize that California is the largest dairy state in the nation. They think Wisconsin or Vermont. No, it's California. And right now, there's an incredible activist, Dr. Crystal Heath, a veterinarian who founded Our Honor, who is showing that cows are dying of bird flu. So we could be headed, I hope not, but we could be headed for the next pandemic because of factory farming, because of our abuse of animals. And we didn't learn from the COVID pandemic. Whether you think it happened in the lab in Wuhan or the Wuhan market, in both places they were torturing animals. So it's animal torture that is leading to another outcome. That 80-20 rule, it could even be 90% of our problems.
How have you seen the industry shift over? Because you said you were basically what you've been doing is kind of documenting the whole movement.
Trying.
How have you seen from from when you started your journey, the growth?
Well, nothing ever goes straight up. So if you look even at the most successful stock, it's like this. So right now we're in a bit of retrenchment. But if you compare where we are to where we were, let's say 29 years ago when I went vegan, we didn't even know what vegan was. Vagin, and they had strange pronunciations. In fact, I learned just by uploading a video to UnchainedTV the other day that the concept of the word vegan only came about in the 1940s because there was a vegetarian society and there was a subgroup of non-dairy vegetarians, and they wanted to have their own thing, and the group said no. So they created their own newsletter. They took the first two letters of vegetarian, V-E, and the last three letters of vegetarian, V-E-G-A-N, first three, last two, and they put them together, and that was vegan. And the word vegan only appeared in the Oxford Dictionary for the very first time in a dictionary in 1962. So that's how young. My stomach is growling. Apologies, don't use that. No, please don't use it. The word vegan only appeared in the dictionary in 1962. That's how new, even though we've had vegan since the beginning of time, that's how new the concept is. So we have to realize that we're doing very well. In fact, we're doing so well that the meat industry has launched a very effective PR war against us. And the mainstream media, which is advertiser-based and carnist and primarily populated with meat eaters, is helping them. So you're seeing a lot of hit pieces. And one of the things that I'd like to see is a watchdog group that goes after reporters who misreport this issue and start saying nasty things about veggie burgers, failing to mention that processed meat is a level 1 carcinogen. So we're getting some really bad reporting, and it's basically mainstream media repeating meat industry talking points. We got to do something about it.
So with Unchained TV, you have a various group of like different reporters that go live for you, right? Are they volunteers?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, we have volunteers who go live. We have some that go live on TikTok, some who go live on Instagram, and some who go live on Facebook. That was something we did a lot of prior to really launching the streaming network. Now we're really focused on trying to get our catalog of films, documentaries, cooking shows on other platforms and try to further brand Unchained TV. So what I urge everybody to do is download Unchained TV on your phone. You just go to your app store, whether it's Android or Apple, and you can just download it. It's free, and you can literally text the videos to whoever. So let's say somebody says, oh, that's not that bad in those factory farms. Boom, text them Earthlings. Boom, text them Dominion. Or text them a fun video. I could never go without cheese. We have an entire category. It says vegan cheese. You could text them that. So that's really great. And then it's on your TV. If you have an Amazon Fire Stick, a Roku device, or an Apple TV device, you can click on it, download Unchained TV. And it's on all Samsung TVs. And in short order, it's going to be on all LG TVs. And then we have the fast channels that we're launching. And we're also putting it out on various, like for example, In the Black Network, which is a streaming network, runs an Unchained TV channel featuring African-American leaders in the vegan movement. So we supplied them with something like 45 incredible videos. And they've told me that they're getting a great reaction from it. So we're just trying to reach people any which way we can.
Nice. And how did you start building it? Like what were the steps to build?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's been a very steep learning curve. Very steep learning curve. I was on-camera talent. I wasn't like some engineer coding, you know. We also have a podcast that we do every week, and then we turn those into articles. So we churn out like 2 or 3 articles a week as well. And here's the thing. I worked in many major networks. So I worked at Paramount Studios, not for Paramount Studios, but at Paramount Studios, which is an incredibly historic studio. I've worked at one of the stations that I worked at was owned by Disney. I worked at CBS. I worked at CNN. So I've seen networks. I watched them like 30 years. So I kind of have an idea of how they work. So that's what I was doing, is replicating that template.
And did you already have your team that built it, or did you find people in the moment when you were starting to build it?
I mean, we went to Vimeo, and they are the ones who provide the streaming network. So that's really our baseline cost, is paying Vimeo to host the streaming network on the phone, online. Just go to UnchainedTV.com or watch UnchainedTV.com, and on the TV. So that's what they do. We're not going to. Some people want to try to do it themselves. Good luck with that. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Not that I have a worst enemy, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's incredibly complicated technology. Let a company that knows how to do it, so that you're not just dealing with glitches all the time. And even when you have this much technology, you're going to have glitches. Think about it. It's got to go into every single TV. So the first thing they ask if there's a glitch, what TV had that glitch? What's the model number? Mm-hmm. Is it a Panasonic? Is it an LG? Is it a Samsung? Is it a blah, 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 blah? Because the technology is really complicated. So you want to go with a company that has a lot of engineers. You don't want to try to play engineer.
And then did you build your team around that? Like you just found people that you're already working with to build the team that helped you build it, and that are
I think people kind of come into your life. Like we work with Heather Dahman, who runs HD Vegan Marketing. And I connected with her through the Mainstream Vegan Academy. And she is a marketing, and she's a marketing expert, but she does app management too. So she's like an all-around help for our website, because we also have a website, which articles and helping us with all sorts of technology when coding comes up, blah, blah, blah. So we have that person. So, we really have very, very tiny, I don't want to spend a dime more than I have to on anything. Try to keep the cost super low. Because what we're doing, we couldn't afford to really do. we're doing what we can afford to do by, for example, me not taking any kind of a salary. It's donor-based. So one of the things we ask people to do, become a monthly donor. You just go to UnchainedTV.com, donate $5, $10 a month. We want to build that up. It adds up. It adds up and it helps. And it's also moral support. When I see a new monthly donor, I go, yes, somebody believes in us. Somebody else believes in us. So, we have challenges. Our biggest challenge is we don't have a multi-million-dollar marketing budget. So how do we let the world know that Unchained TV exists? That's one of the reasons we want to go into fast channels, because fast channels will be providing a branding for us. And there's ways where we put in, if you like this content, go to UnchainedTV.com and get more. So we're hoping that that's really going to brand us. If you look at these other networks, they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on, you drive up around Hollywood, it's billboards and the blah, blah. We can't do that.
That would be cool to see that.
We did one billboard for ending real fur. And that was super fun. And there is a vegan billboard guy who gave us a real good deal on one vegan billboard in the Hollywood area.
I imagine one day when we can just do a takeover. We just like either do it with like a screen or just like cover all of them at one, like a whole section of billboards at once in LA and then just film it. It would be great.
Well, yeah.
One day the activists might do that.
I don't know. I don't know if I would endorse that.
Yeah. It would be nice. I'm just sharing, planting a seed.
Well, there are people like a vegan Batgirl. They project vegan images on factory farms. So funny, the cat's right there.
The director.
Yeah, she is the director. Steven Spielberg is what I'm going to call her.
Oh, I have the same birthday as Steven Spielberg.
Oh, really?
December 18th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're saying the Cube of Truth and...
I love the Cube of Truth. We actually did a video of the world's largest cube of truth, which it was at the time in the San Francisco area. I think it's a great idea. I love what everybody does. I love all the groups. They all do different things. And we got to throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But I know media, so that's why I'm focused on media. Whatever you do, you can use your skill to help animals. If you're a violinist, a friend of mine's a violinist, she plays at various events for free, including our events. That's great activism. It doesn't matter what you do, you could use your skill to help animals. Mine is media, so that's what I do.
Yeah, we have the tool to, reach 8 billion people if we want to, once we can, co-market to everyone.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah, I think that I was just remembering when you said the Cube of Truth, I was living in Mexico in the first time I was living in Mexico, 2016, 2017, and I attended a cube in Playa del Carmen, even before I was vegetarian.
Oh.
So, yeah, and I held a computer. So I think that really planted a seed for me before.
Yeah.
And then I started doing Meatless Monday when I was living in Mexico like 8 years ago.
Oh.
And eventually I never was planning to go vegan. That's the thing. It's like, it just it kind of just fell into my world. And then especially when I moved to LA, then it's like I just fell into the vegan activist community unintentionally actually. So then it really shifted my perception. And it was the first time, going to the shutdown. That was my first time doing a vigil.
Wow.
Seeing the pigs.
So powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
And all the environmental organizers speaking there was so inspiring,
It's, the vigils. Anita Krines is one of my heroes, what she does with the SAVE movement and plant-based treaty. Very creative, just extraordinary activism, and the concepts are brilliant, and the way she carries them off, and her incredible team. So I'm very honored to work with all these different groups. I admire them all. I look at what people do. For me, the biggest heroes are the undercover investigators. Just interviewed yesterday Animal Outlook about their undercover investigation into live animal markets in San Francisco. And it's a horror show all over the country and the world, live markets. And they're all over. They're in New York City. We have to get to a plant-based, slaughter-free society, and soon. The clock is ticking. I did a documentary called Countdown to Year Zero, profiling Dr. Silas Rao. He makes the case we only have a few years. There's only about 9 boundaries. And once you break those boundaries, there's no turning back. Once the ice caps melt, you can't go on Amazon and order more ice caps. It's over. And we're breaking through. We're breaking through those boundaries. It's terrifying. And people's houses are getting burned down. It's still like, wake up. There was a whole effort to say in these terrible tragedies, the fires, don't be serving people meat. And Plant-Based Treaty went in there and was providing plant-based meals to people who were displaced. Thank you.
That was so nice.
Yeah.
And during the vigil when they were providing food. There were so many different organizations providing food as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been such a shift now that the fires happen, and we need to build a water retention landscape. We can't just continue to do this, build like this in this way. And I see a vision for LA, that's restored and regenerated, where more trees are coming up, and we have, the soil is regenerated and the water is there, and it's not built on just buildings, actually regenerating the earth. And yeah, one question I wanted to ask you is, have you ever built a program or trained anyone on like how to kind of be a reporter?
I have given people, yes, and we have a whole little, if you go on our website, do's and don'ts. And I have to stop people from saying libelous things. That's the number one.
Libelous?
Libelous.
You mean liability?
Yeah, getting sued.
Okay.
We don't want to get sued. You can't just say whatever you want. And people get emotional and then they start attacking. No, that's the big no-no. You don't want to attack people individually. And if you do, there's a way to do it. It's very, very, you have to be very careful. And I'm all for peaceful, nonviolent confrontation when necessary, but there's rules. There's a lot of things that, as a reporter, that's why reporters say allegedly, purportedly, so you attribution. There's a lot of things. So-and-so claims, so-and-so charges. You have to get the other side. You have to, just yesterday, the day before yesterday, when I was going to interview Animal Outlook about the San Francisco issue, I called the Animal Care and Control and sought a statement from them. And they didn't return my call. But then I went online and I found that they had issued a statement to CBS News. And I used that statement. And then I invited them on anytime. So there's a lot of things you try to do to make sure you provide opportunity for response if there's any kind of charge, allegation made, complaint made. So there's rules to being a journalist.
And so most of the lines are just not showing that it's not really a fact, but it's like, you're saying allegedly, blah, blah, blah. So
yes. You have to be careful. I mean, in mainstream, if you're covering a case, if you're covering a criminal trial, the person's on trial. They haven't been convicted yet. So you have to be very careful and say, the allegations are blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's good to keep to those rules. It also gives you credibility. If you're just like ranting and raving, I don't think you have the journalistic credibility. We want to bring journalistic rules to what we're doing. Now, every journalistic publication today has a point of view. MSNBC has a liberal point of view. Fox News has a conservative point of view. We have a point of view, but that doesn't mean we just go for alternative facts, as they say. I have a little fridge magnet. Alternative facts is a lie. So, we try to stick to facts and not overstate a case. It's better to understate it than overstate it.
How do you create this like clear and concise message?
Well, I have like a to-do list on our website, and I'll talk to people. But
like on camera, like.
What do you mean?
As a reporter, say if I'm reporting, I'm doing a news piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, news is actually very interesting. Whenever you go to a story, you are confused. You don't have all the answers. And don't make judgments about what's going to happen when you get there, because usually your presumptions are wrong. Who, what, when, where, why, how. I don't care if you're covering a murder or a fire. You have to say who, and there's a lot of who's. Who's the victim, who done it, who, what happened, where did it happen, when did it happen? There may be 5 whens. When did the person show up? When did this happen? When did that happen? Where, why? That's the big motive. And then how. And if you really stick to that, you can tell a story. So every time I was assigned to a story, and they used to call me rocket socks because I always wanted to get there right away, because I knew that no matter how fast we go, the story's already happening before we get there, right? Nobody's going to know, oh, it's like I covered the Michael Jackson case for many years. There were many different trials, and that was something I was known for. I happened to be in Puerto Rico at a media convention when Michael Jackson died. And people were calling me, what are you doing in Puerto Rico? Michael, I said, well, you think I'm a psychic? I didn't know that that was going to happen, right? So, but the point is that you always have to go into the confusion, and then you break it down into those boxes. So like, let's say there's a fire, what? Well, what went in on flames? What was the igniting agent? What did the firefighters do? What did the residents do? There's a lot of whats. It's not just one what. So, and then the old saying, 2 sides to a story. Usually there's 4 or 5 sides to a story, but you don't want to just take one side. So sometimes that's been twisted, you might say, like Fox News' logo is fair and balanced, and some people say that's not really accurate, but leave that as it is. There's others, only the news that's fit to print, but where's all the news about animal suffering and animal torture, right? People are talking about bird flu, and they're not even talking about the millions of animals that have been baked to death in ventilation shutdown as a preemptive measure because they've been exposed to bird flu. They don't even necessarily have bird flu. And that is a torture. It is a torturous way to die, and the media does not cover that. All they cover is the price of eggs. That's carnist media right there. Right there. Talking about bird flu only in terms of the cost of eggs, not the suffering of these animals and the way these animals are being killed by the millions in a process called ventilation shutdown. Horrifying. And who's paying for it? Taxpayers. Reimbursing these giant corporations and leaving them with no incentive to do better in protecting the animals from getting bird flu because, well, the government's going to pay for it anyway. So there's a lot wrong with our government. There is. In any case, and that's not a political statement, that's just an observation. We're trying to get, if you're going to cut government, cut the Farm Bill subsidies to animal agriculture and to things like ventilation shutdown. Stop forcing taxpayers to contribute to baking millions of animals to death.
That's awful.
It's horrible. So anyway, not to be a downer, but there's a lot of really horrible things that the mainstream media doesn't cover. That's what we want to cover. That's what I just did yesterday.
I'm curious, because you went over the what, how, why, like all the, the 5 whats and 5 W's in terms of telling a story.
Yes.
Say if I'm telling a story about, for example, blue-headed macaws in the Amazon rainforest.
Yes.
And now they're being protected and, of course they're illegally traded in a lot of places.
Yes.
I spent 6 months in Peru in the Amazon, and the blue-headed macaw was indeed, was on the red ICN list of being vulnerable. See if there's, a lot of work being done that's amazing for blue-headed macaws now. How would you tell it on both, how would you make that interesting on both sides to be show the positive, but would you, how would you?
Well, you could show the positive, but also show the problem, what you said, the illegal trading. So the reason they need help is because they're being exploited. So you want to show the positive, but you also want to show the underlying conditions and the underlying problems that lead to them needing this special care to be, what are they being saved from?
Yeah, because in storytelling, you always want to have a hook, right? Because you want to kind of have the hook at the beginning and then kind of go into the, shift, the transformation of.
Yes, and I think it's always good with videos, when possible, to be upbeat in the beginning, because I've seen so many of these videos now, and if it starts sad, and it's just sad music and depressing, people don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
So it would be
go,
better
okay.
to start with the happy, happy, happy birds and all the positives, and then you get into the more serious stuff and come back. Like Moby's very good with this with his movie, which we stream, punk rock vegan movie. He shows the things that are happening to animals in a short burst. Before somebody can change, oh, he's back to the punk rockers. It's very clever to just show little bursts. Then people perceive it, but then before they can run away, oh, we're back to music. That's what we have to do. We have to just put little bursts to get people to see it before they can. People don't want to see this stuff. They go out of their way not to. So I can't tell you how many people I tried to get to those vigils, and then they'd call me up at the last second. Oh, we really don't think we can make it.
Yeah.
They don't want to see it. They don't want to go. It takes courage to go to those vigils. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, this has been a really super fun conversation, but I have a 1:45 Zoom coming up.
Yes.
That I've got to prep for.
Growth Mastery, so good to be here. Thank you for your time. It was great to tune in to what you're working on right now with Unchained TV and the whole, history of what you've created.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you. You're doing great work, and I love your energy, and power on.
Thank you.